Welcome to the Finance Geeks, a podcast about real financial planning. Join us as we get into the nitty-gritty, discussing everything from pensions to portfolios. If you're into numbers, strategies, and running a successful practice, this is your ultimate geeky hangout.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 15 of the Finance Geeks podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Warren Shute, and I'm here joined by...
the wonderful Paul Cleworth.
I love the way you sing that. It is so wonderful. And today...
Well, I don't get a big intro, do I? Carry on.
You get an appropriate one, Paul. Today we're talking about one size doesn't fit all, crafting your income plan in retirement. So, Paul, before we dive into that and find out all that juicy detail, what have you been up to?
I have been to the Royal Albert Hall just most recently.
Impressed.
Yeah,
like
I went
it.
to watch. I went to when did I? Went on Sunday. So
Cool.
It was busy because I was karting at the weekend with my son Miles at Shennington, which is in the middle of nowhere, and then drove home in the afternoon, swapped with my wife Alison to get back here to get ready to get into London from mine to watch Gladiator, which is obviously the film. It's the 25th anniversary with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra playing, and I took 4 clients. So I loved it. You've been to the Royal Albert Hall a lot of times, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I love it down there. One of my favourite buildings. And you said you loved it. How was Alison watching Gladiator? Did she love it?
She didn't go. No, I just took 4 clients. No, she didn't go. She was busy bringing Miles back from Shennington. So, but saying that, because I love Royal Albert so much, Royal Albert Hall so much, I've booked on the way home. Having had a couple of drinks, I booked Back to the Future in October later this year. And I thought it's probably my favourite film of all time, 1985. So I booked that. And then at home at the weekend, or rather this week, I ended up booking 2 extra things at Royal Albert Hall. One is in September this year, which is the Planets, Gustav Holst. So I managed to get 2 tickets for that. For Alison and myself, I'm going to take her this time. And then for something like, It's May next year, there's the film gala. So again, it's John Williams and... who's the other one? Who's the other film composer?
That one.
Hans Zimmer. Yes, thank you, Catherine. Hans Zimmer and John Williams. So we've got. I'm all ticketed up now for Royal Albert Hall, which is good. I have also been watching a lot of 80s movies, Warren, including Karate Kid, Brewster's Millions, The Running Man, Police Academy. I just throwback to me.
What was the first one?
And the Karate Kid.
Oh,
Ralph Macchio, yeah.
Oh, is that the same as Karate Kid?
What did I say? Karate.
Karate.
The Karate Kid.
Karate.
You say karate. The Karate Kid. The Karate Kid. I'm a northerner. And lastly, just while I get on, before I ask you, good self, as a family, we went to the theatre about a week ago to watch Mrs. Doubtfire, the musical, obviously based on the 1993 film with Robin Williams. So we loved it. Well, I loved it and my wife loved it. My kids sort of didn't really get it initially properly, but... they were looking at me going, what's going on? Why is this guy dressing up as a woman?
Why can we watch Karate Kid?
Yeah, the Karate Kid is brilliant. My youngest, Rory, loves Tears for Fears. He asks me to play it all the time in the car. So,
really?
I just need to introduce him now to a few 80s movies and we'll be cracking. What have you been up to, Mr. Shute?
Paul,
Playing more golf?
Playing more golf. I've just come back from Portugal. So 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Had my 2 weeks off. Enjoyed a couple of weeks off and was out in Portugal and played a bit of golf out there, which was nice. And I probably played the hardest course I've ever played in my life. About 5
Was
and
it a links course?
It was a bit of a links course. About 5.5 hours to get around in a buggy. And
Whoa.
It was
How long was it? Or was it just busy?
No, it was a long course. I don't know the actual distance. It was a Nick Faldo course. It was nice. It was good, but it was hard. And we refrained from calling them bunkers to beaches. That literally the greens were bigger than some of the holes. Some of the course that I play on, and the bunkers were massive. And I saw most of them. So but it was good. It was all right. And then played a bit of golf when I got back here in the UK and stuff. So it's this weather. It's fantastic, isn't it? It's lovely.
It has been amazing. I don't know if this is our summer now, but I think it was it 25, 28 the other day. It was really warm.
Yesterday we were in Thursday. The 1st was warm, very, very warm. We're recording this on Friday.
Long may it continue, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you've got to get out and water the garden, haven't you?
Yeah.
And make sure you don't know, cut the grass and all that sort of stuff. It's growing. I'm going to do that this weekend. Actually, cut the grass, get on the lawnmower, sit on, ride on.
I can't get on mine. Nikki does mine. So does the garden. She loves it. She loves gardening and stuff. Yeah, she's on it.
Get her to get round to mine and do it. Yeah. How much do I have to pay her an hour to do some ride on lawn mowing at mine?
For you, Paul, I think she'll do it for nothing. She loves you.
Thank you. How is Nikki and how are the kids at your end? All right.
Awesome. Yeah, really cool. I'm really excited. Next week, we're going down to Buckingham Palace to see. Bella's got her Duke of Edinburgh Gold, so she goes to Palace, gets her award and stuff. Nikki went with Ollie to get his a couple of years ago, so I get to go with Bella. And
who presents it now? It used to be Charles that presented it, didn't it? Or
it'd be great if it was.
Used to be the Duke of Edinburgh, I suppose.
I think it is. Andrew.
Anne present it, or
that's what Andrew was joking. I don't know who does it, but it'd be good. It'd be good fun. Look forward to that. It'd be nice, spoiler, and have a good time. And then she comes back for a party, and then Nikki and I are going to go off to Ronnie Scott's. Going to go down to the jazz bar, and I really like my jazz music, so yeah, going to go on to Ronnie Scott's, stay over another night and stuff. So that'd be good. And talk about Royal Albert Hall. I'm actually at the Royal Albert Hall for VE Day. That's what I thought you were going to say. I thought you was going to get, I'm going to go down to the VE. So we've got the big VE Day celebrations down there. So, we're going to go down, I think it's the night before, and do the VE Day celebration.
You hired a whole box as usual.
Of course. Yeah. Comfort, isn't it? Comfort. What's financial planning if it's not like, designing your life to enjoy it? It's not a dress rehearsal, is it? So, yeah.
It is amazing, the Royal Albert Hall, though. The whole prestige of it and the building, and especially if you've got a box or some good seats and you've got to do the you get a wine and cheese and you can get a meal and all that sort of stuff. Make a proper day out of it, because they do some at 2:30 and some at 7:30, don't they? Depends on what time you go. Are you going to watch the proms, or do you ever go to the proms?
That is balloted. I think you have to go to the other proms around the country, and then you kind of get tickets for that. But we've never seen it there. Yeah. So
last night at the proms, you're right, it's balloted, but the others you can get tickets for throughout the summer.
Yeah, I should do. I'd probably enjoy that. That'd be good fun. It's hey, should we move on to the main focal point? Yeah. So one size doesn't fit all. Crafting your income plan in retirement. So, Paul, talk to me. What's your thoughts?
Well, I've been having lots of annual reviews and client meetings recently, as you do as a financial planner, and more and more of my clients are in the decumulation phase, which is a word that I shouldn't use with clients because they don't know what it means. I don't think it's a real word, which I get. They're in income withdrawal, they're in retirement, they're taking money from their portfolio. And I think it's just reminded me, when we craft these financial plans for clients, how bespoke they need to be, how unique everyone is based on their circumstances, the cash assets that they have, any other income that they might have, whether it's final salary or rental income or whatever. And of course, the things that I've realized that completely matter are their requirement for income. How much do they need? What's their lifestyle costs? Their current age, their health, and their expected longevity. It then goes into, are you expecting to receive an inheritance in the future, possibly? Or might you downsize your house, or do you have any other assets? And because of this complication, you can't just stick to let's just take 4% from your portfolio and that's it.
Yeah.
And that'll be fine. That's just an overly simplistic way of looking at it.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think as a financial planner, it's really important to have standard systems and processes, repeatable processes that you can follow the client, but you can't dogmatically stick to those and do nothing else. So we would have a system, a process to do things, but then that's kind of what you go into the meeting with. But then within the meeting, when you're crafting your advice, you can then flex it to the client's needs. And I think this is why financial planning is very much an art and a science. We've got the scientific calculations and the formulas that work, but we've got to work with the artistic side of making sure we craft it to the client's needs. So we're not just sort of pushing everyone into the same solution, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I I've noticed that we're trying to adapt and change the way that we present it, or the way that I present it to the client. So instead of what we used to do is have this game plan at the back of our reports, which basically said, you've got based on these projections, and 6% growth, 4% income withdrawal, 3% inflation, based on these assumptions and these rates. Your various pots of money you have, whether it's ISA, pension, bond, GIA, whatever, it would all be laid out, all in today's terms, showing the actual figures that the client would get after tax. And what I found is that in the most recent one I did with the client this week, I took that page out
Yeah.
because we knew what size pot they had. It was about 2.75 million for this couple, and that excludes the cash that they have personally and their property and vehicles and so forth. It's just the assets that we manage for them. And they wanted to draw about 10,000 a month, so 120k a year. And it ends up being about 4.5% withdrawal rate. Well, because of the way they were invested and because of the cash assets that they had, and their 100% equities, I'd said, yeah, I think this is sustainable for yourselves. We were using their personal allowance, so 12,570 from the taxable part of the pension because they didn't have much other taxable income, and doing it as efficiently as we could. And I think that when I discussed it with them about what's been going on in markets in the last month or so and what's happened over the last year, they're pretty much leveled in this period of time overall, even though they've been up and then down again. But it made me think, okay, is this enough? Is this income you're drawing sufficient for your lifestyle? And they sort of said to me when they completed a cash flow, it just goes, we just got to, that sort of hedonic treadmill. You get to this point where life's the same, that you get used to spending the same amount of money. And I said, well, is there anything else you want to do? Is there anywhere else you want to go? Is there any other requirement for capital? And then we're flexing and tweaking. And I said, well, what if you draw another 1,000 or 2,000 a month? Would that help? Would you get the joy out of this extra money? And let's have a look at the impact of that. Because what's interesting is when we had these two graphs, one's showing in real terms the income in their portfolio over the next 40 years or something to age 100, 42 years for them. And the other one was showing the capital value, and the capital in real terms would still be 2 million based on our projections when they get to 100. So I was thinking, what's the point of that? Here's me telling you to spend your money, and if you don't spend it, someone else is going to spend it. And yet the figures and the projections I've put for you, I've said, yeah, it's going to be okay, but you're going to leave a lot of money for your kids in the future, and there's going to be a big IHT bill.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I think clients often think their expenditure is going to be fairly linear over the rest of their life. So they're going to spend this amount of money going forward. But we really try and sort of challenge our clients' spending pattern or profile and then taper it at events in the future. So a good example is motoring. Okay, so they run their cars at the moment. We make an assumption that they replace their car every 5 years, and then they'll keep their last car for 10 years when they stop motoring at age 85, and then they'll revert to taxis. So the expenditure really does drop off that way. And we often have some clients say, well, actually, probably at 75, we'll go down to one car. We wouldn't keep two cars in the last 10 years for our retirement. There wouldn't be a need or requirement for it. But also things like holidays. We do the long haul holidays at the beginning, then we do more sort of shorter haul holidays. And then as you start getting into your 80s, I have a lot of clients who just don't want to go anywhere. They've done their traveling. Their focus is more on the family. So by doing that, you free up even more capital for them to join now. And I think it's the missed opportunity if we don't do cash flow financial planning to make sure that we cost the client's lifestyle. And we use Truth software for ours, and we believe it's very, very comprehensive. And it's very straightforward to use. I think there's a big misnomer with the software about it being complicated, but we find it very, very straightforward to use.
It's visual as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice. So clients come in, we have a big TV screen on the wall, and we share the data. We go through the different stages. And what we're really trying to say to them is, hey, look, ordinarily you would say drawing this level of income, but we want to make sure that you're doing everything you want to do and that you're going to have no regrets.
But that comes down to asking the questions of them, isn't it? It's asking and having them think about, do they want to make a gift to their children in the future or gifts to charity? Do they want to be philanthropic? Might they, as you said, want to do up the house, buy a holiday home, buy a new car? And so I imagine you have a process for asking them lots of leading questions, thought-provoking questions.
I think people are motivated either by pain or pleasure. Okay, so towards or away from, what brings you more happiness? What brings you joy? And one thing I have learned is not to make the assumption of what brings me happiness or joy will bring them happiness or joy.
And
I'll share
project
with
it
them.
onto them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share with them that, for me, it's comfort and convenience. I want to fly comfortably at a convenient hour. I want to travel comfortably. That's what's important to me. But for them, it might be something completely different, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But if it's not pleasure moving towards, it's moving away from or pain. And the one thing that often gets clients on this one is, hey, look, you're finding it challenged to spend your capital here. You got this £2.7 million. You're finding it hard to draw extra money from it. Can I promise you that your daughter-in-law or your son-in-law will have no issue spending this money? And then just allow them just to sink in for a little bit. And I share with them a great example. I had up until a couple of years ago, an Uncle Alan in America. He was a pretty wealthy individual, okay, but he was extremely frugal. He never flew other than economy, and he always stayed with family. He never spent money unnecessarily. And I always say to him, why don't you fly a bit more comfortably? No, it's absolutely fine for me. The year following his death, a couple of cousins and stuff inherited his wealth. They flew across to see us for the first time, and they all flew business class. And that just made me chuckle inside.
So ironic.
Yet they have no problem enjoying that money. Like they shouldn't. It's not a judgment on them. They should have no problem enjoying that money whatsoever. But it's a shame that he didn't enjoy it too, to that extent.
It is.
It's important not to leave too much on the table.
But you see, for me, all of this comes down to the client's mindset and their perception and their understanding about money and investments. It's how they feel about the level of withdrawal that they're taking. If you get the sort of client that's looking at the markets every 5 minutes, they're seeing their portfolio go down as well as up, and they're then constantly thinking, even though you're reassuring them, oh, I can't spend all this money now. I can't spend this because it might run out and so forth. So the more you can demonstrate to a client using fairly pessimistic or realistic figures that they won't run out, that it's a sensible strategy that you're thinking for them about the short term and the long term, that they've got sufficient income now that they'll get state pension in the future. It's painting this picture and then showing them graphically, as you do with True Software, that it's going to be okay. But you do get the extremes, and it's not very typical for myself, but where the client's got a spending habit that massively exceeds their capital that they have. And so I've had cases where clients, in hindsight, have spent 6, 7, 8% a year, and it has dropped. The portfolio has dropped because of it, certainly in real terms. So the way I think about it, if you're going to draw between sort of 4 and 5% a year, and you've got a 70, 80% level of equities or 100%, it should be fine if you've got a decent cash pot, 1 or 2 years income in cash, if not more. But you start to draw much more than 5%, let's say 6 or 7, intentionally. You've got to have a backup plan for that. You've got to say, well, it's okay if I do this for the next 10 years between 55 and 65, because in my late 60s, state pensions kicking in, or this final salary is kicking in, or will downsize, or whatever. And then marshal the plan, the portfolio that they have, accordingly. So you might even have 3, 4, 5 years worth of monies in cash to substantiate that high level of income in the next few years. So this is the point, isn't it? That it's bespoke to everyone, but having them understand that they won't run out of money and that you're on the case, helping them with this strategy, that's the important thing.
Yeah, 100%. Everything what you said, I completely agree with. It's the benefit of those ongoing reviews. So it's like if you're a financial planner listening, don't ever underestimate the power of helping your client live life by design and not default, our sort of strapline. Really encouraging them to do the things that they want to do and find out from them what brings you more happiness. And then showing them, evidence to them, say, okay, it's okay to take a higher withdrawal rate in this period of time, because then we're going to drop it back down, because that's when your state pension kick in or your defined benefit pensions kick in, just like you were saying. I think that's a real value added. And then knowing that they're going to have these ongoing annual planning meetings, they're going to keep abreast of what's going on. And the asset allocation, just making sure that they've got that cash We call it a liquidity pot. We have 5 years, 18 months in cash, 3.5 years in short-term bonds, making sure they've got that liquidity pot to fund their lifestyle, their income needs. And that's income and capital spending that they're likely to take. So any income needs they're going to take for the next 5 years. And then our preference is to have to balance that money in 100% equities for growth. So really getting that money working hard for them. And, we've all gone through this period recently where the markets have been chopping and tailing all over the place. Our income pot's up over 6% over the last 12 months. And our growth pot, as of yesterday, was up about 5.5%. So it's like,
Wow,
it's okay. Life's okay. Life hasn't finished and you've still done all the things you want to do.
The last week, in fact, has been very positive in markets. And on the one hand, as the advisor, you're telling your client, don't look at it very often. And as the advisor, you're looking at it for them. And then when it does go up, I want to say, oh, this is good news. It's done that. One of the things that came to mind when you were chatting then is this idea of intentionally taking a high level of income in, for the next 5 years or 10 years and then lower later on.
Yeah.
And the reports, the projections and the graphs that lots of advisors will show their clients, I've seen ones where some of them don't factor in inflation and
Right.
others that do. And if you're showing the client without inflation and you're saying, well, you're drawing 4%, 5%, but it's going to grow at 6 or 7, the nominal value in all the graphs will go up because the return substantiates the income withdrawal and more. You then start to put in inflation and you say, well, what rate of inflation should we assume? And we assume 3%. There's others that you can put it higher, you can put it lower, but 3%, there's evidence to show the last 25 years, it's about that. And then it got me thinking, well, let's say I do that. And we say to the clients, you're drawing at 4, inflation's 3, that's 7%. We're only assuming after charges 6% withdrawal. That's what we do. The value of the pots or the bars charts are falling in real terms over time. So it all looks quite negative. But then it made me think, actually, the not all clients need or want an indexed income in retirement. It's the reality that I've not actually had it where every 12 months the client says, well, this year it's £10,000 a month, but or £100,000 a year for easy maths. Next year I need 103. I just need 100. And you're like, they just adapt. They adapt to that income. And one of the things that's in the show notes is that the link to the Vanguard white paper, this guide to retirement withdrawal strategies, which is, I think people should read. And they refer to the term dynamic spending strategies.
Okay.
And they just say, look, when markets are volatile, and you get the sequencing of risk return, all you've got to consider to do is just alter your spending strategies. So instead of taking 4%, take 3.8. And the difference over the long term, there's a lot of evidence to show if you can just pivot and adapt when times are tough, when things are volatile, if you need to, because people don't always need to if they've got sufficient monies in cash. But if you need, it makes a massive difference long term compared to the maths of the historical period of like the last 30, 40 years, just taking the same amount every year or just taking the same indexed amount every year, regardless of what's going on in markets. You've got to adapt a bit.
So they're basically saying, set your withdrawal rate, and then if the markets are choppy, then maybe pull it back a little bit or don't increase it.
Yeah, they are exactly that. And I know that one of the things that you do is you say, well, we've got this short-term cash, these short-term bonds, 1 in every 4 years is negative, 3 in every 4 are positive. When we meet you out once a year and we do this review, and let's say markets have gone up 12%, you can intentionally top up the other pots because of it, because you're sort of rebalancing at that time. You're reducing their risk profile in a sense by topping up this other monies and asking the question, do you require, what's different about your circumstances now? Lots could be different. Their health could be different. They've just inherited 300,000. We've got intentions to downsize. All these things can change. Oh, by the way, we've decided to give our kids 100,000. And we did a calculation for a client who had a pretty big pot of money, £2.5 to £3 million, and she wanted to consider paying for school fees for all 3 of her grandchildren. I think it was 3 and then a potential 4th. It ended up being so expensive that I said, that your pot's going to go down to 0 by the time you're like 78 or something, because it was going to be like 600,000 of fees when you work out how expensive private schooling is. So I said, well, you could just contribute, give them X amount or give them surplus income. But you can't just say willy-nilly without projections, I'll just pay for all the school fees, not unless you're very wealthy.
What did she do? Did she do it or not?
No, didn't do it at all. Looked at the pot and thought, me, it's tricky. I think that there's discussions. There's lump sums given, but nothing with a plan to say we'll just pay for everything.
Yeah.
And I do know that there are grandparents that want to pay for higher education, for university fees, for example, for children. And let's say the average cost is £20,000 a year. It might be more or less, but for 3 years, 60,000. If you're in your 70s and you're a grandparent and you want to pay for a grandchild to go to higher education and you've got the funds, it's a commitment of 3 years. Whereas, private schooling can be for what, from age 11 to 18 or even younger,
5,
from
4 or 5,
5, or it could be 10 plus years,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it can be considerable,
Yeah.
especially for multiple kids.
And I'm out, so I'm good. I have my last payment this year, so I'm happy chappy.
Oh, with Bella and
Yeah.
Ollie having left now and being
Yeah.
what age, 18 and 20?
Bella actually physically leaves in about 8 weeks or 6 weeks time. So we paid the last term beginning of this year, and that's all done. So since 5 years old. So what's that? 15 years? No, maybe younger than 5, about 3-4 years old. 16 years, long time. So that's why I have a smile on my face.
Been there. And the thing is, now you can talk passionately to clients about raising children, about school fees, about costs, about all of these things. Let's just mention, as if we may, please, the book, which I'll put in the link to the show notes, called Beyond the 4% Rule, which is a book by our friend Abraham Akosaya. And it's quite a droll book in some ways, a dry, statistical book, because it's all about alternatives to the 4% rule. And there's like 10 of them. And I think that what I would just encourage our listeners to do is just always decide logically with their client, based on their circumstances, what they're going to do, and do what works, rather than just follow some specific approach, like as we said, dynamic spending rules, or floor and uplift strategy, or guardrails approach, or stick to a certain percentage of the portfolio. I think you do have to consider what works. And then there's the clients that as well, that want to buy an annuity, and all of that makes a big difference. If all of a sudden you're going to spend half your assets to buy your portfolio, which you can do, of course, to buy an index linked annuity, then if that covers all your main outgoings and costs, you don't have to do much investment jiggery pokery to make it work. You just say, there you go, there's your income, we've set you up,
you do,
get your
I think,
state pension, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think one thing, we don't do a lot of it ourselves, but I think one thing a lot of people, we talk about it, we planners overlook, is the gilt yields at the moment. So the 30-year gilt yield,
high,
I think,
aren't they?
it's over 5%. So
have you been doing more annuities because of this?
No,
or at least looking at them?
No, sorry. I'm physically talking about purchasing a direct gilt with a 30-year term duration.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
right.
It's about, when I last looked, it was like 5.1%, because we were looking at it for a client and weighing up the option stuff. He ultimately decided just to invest the portfolio and just back himself. But it's like there's it's an art, it's a science, the logic behind it, but it's an art.
The idea of buying direct gilts yourself works and doesn't work. It's great in principle if you can get over a 5% yield, and you just hold the gilt to maturity. But the underlying asset isn't growing. I mean, it's a complete difference to equities, where you're getting both the dividend income and the underlying capital value, the increase in the units. So
100%.
I just think it's the same with, you do as an advisor what you're probably best at doing. If you do it a lot, you get better at it. And I think you've always got to be looking at the alternatives, just to sort of go back to them and say, should I be selling annuities to my clients, or looking at them more? Should I consider direct gilt? Should I consider alternative investments? And I look at them and then still dismiss them quite often. I tell the clients these are options in retirement, and we discuss them, like annuity versus drawdown. And in the majority of cases, drawdown just happens to be more appropriate for them. Based on their circumstances.
Yeah, we generally look after what we refer to as family stewards, people who kind of preserving their wealth. They want to pass it down the bloodline. So buying annuities kind of just puts that straight out of the family line, unless you're doing a back to back and purchasing a whole of life or something.
This title is crafting your income plan in retirement, and the one size doesn't fit all. Have you got any examples or thoughts or anything else you wanted to say on this topic, specifically to do with the point that one size doesn't fit all? I mean, is it just about percentages and withdrawal, or is it the fact that every single client's completely different and you have to just rethink it and look at the numbers and say, all right, this is what we do? I mean,
okay, so as a starting point, where we work with clients is we would typically start on a 4% income yield. So on their portfolio, typically it might go to 5%. Okay. And then once we've done that and we've built the cash flow out and we can show that they're never going to run out of money, we then test the cash flow. We stress test it.
Till age 100?
To age 100.
Or sometimes beyond, you mentioned, yeah.
That's right, yeah. To age 100, if the client is particularly young, so in their 30s, we'll go to 110. But if they're older, so late 80s, 90s, we'll go to 110 as well. And that's just so that there's a decent cash flow period there. I take my own cash flow to 110 because my dad's 100. I kind of think with medical advancements, I'm going to live longer. So my own cash flow is pushed out further. But then we stress test it. So we say, okay, well, there's a market correction. What needs to happen? What would happen to the result? Can you still afford it? And then we start talking about, are you doing everything you want to do? Is there anything you haven't yet done that you'd like to do? What brings you more happiness? And then that's why we try to, and then we factor those costs into the cash flow and then work out, okay, what yield, what would we need to take from the investment portfolio, whether it's a pension or a collectives, to meet those expenditure needs. So that's the way we start. So we start with a rule of thumb, 4%, maybe 5%.
I think that's sensible.
And then if the clients want to do more things, rather than have a big pension pot, the great thing that Presswood or Truth enables you to do is you do your cash flow model, and you can see that they're going to have so many hundreds of thousands or millions left over at the end of the day. You can overlay the pension fund value on top, so you can now see basically their full investment value and how much money is available to them. Sometimes it's just ridiculous. It's just when I say it's ridiculous, we don't always work with super wealthy individuals. Okay, so I don't want to give the listeners the view that we only deal with multi-million accounts, but money's relative. So if we're spending 10,000 a year and we've got a few 100,000 left over, that's a lot of money. If we're spending 100,000, we've got a few million left over, that's a lot of money. It's to sort of make sure that our figures are relative and proportionate to what the client's thinking. And just making sure they're enjoying, not having any regrets. That's our main aim.
Yeah, no, I like that. Have you seen those people that you get these bogus tattoos and you see pictures and memes of them and it says no regrets in the tattoo instead of no regrets? It always makes me laugh. It makes me think of that when you say no regrets. I bet they regretted that one. Either that or they're dyslexic and they don't care. So you remember last week when I said to you that did the figure of my wiggly line with the am I on track to achieve, and you made fun of me and when I was doing the line like this and talking about standard deviation above and below the line, right? I've got two more wiggly lines for you that I wanted to discuss because we don't jump to let me share my screen in this if you're watching it on YouTube. So there's one that's relevant that I think that it's becoming more apparent in my mind that I'm thinking about how to explain it to clients. Number one is your pot goes up in value.
Yeah.
Because you're putting money in, because you're saving for your retirement, and because markets are growing. And then the idea is and the discussion point with the client is, now that you've got to this point where you're taking benefits from your money, don't be afraid for the pot value to fall because you're intentionally spending this money. And of course, if you could get a set level of growth, a set level of withdrawal, it didn't change, and you knew exactly the date of your death, you'd time it so that it got down to zero or near zero by the time you die. So I've been finding it a challenge almost to sort of, you want to show a client they're never going to run out of money. And then on the flip side, you show them graphs that are so positive, they have such a big number at age 100. You're just thinking, well, that means we have to spend more now. Yeah. So I think that the client's got to change their mindset to say it's okay when you take benefits out, when you're at the point when you're taking income withdrawal from your money that you've saved for this purpose, that it's falling. The second graph line that I'm going to describe is where you've got the y-axis being pounds, being money, and then the x-axis being time. And instead of it being a straight line or a rising line, as in you need more money over the years, it tends to work that it's higher in the first few years, than the first 10 to 15 years, because they say, I want higher income now to do stuff. Yeah. Then into their 70s, it can fall. So it goes like this. Yeah. And then in their 80s and 90s, if they need long-term care, it can rise. It's all relative. But in a lot of cases, long-term care is so expensive, 70, 80, 90,000 pounds a year. If you've got both of you in long-term care, it's unusual for the client to have we're retired and it's £500,000 a year, so this is hardly anything. This is easily affordable. Yeah. It's going to be, they're on a good income, then it drops because they don't spend as much, and it can, not always, but it can go up in later years.
I think they're both really valid points. The first one's particularly valid, that we often, and this can sound a sexist comment, but I think females listener would agree with it. Males often, this is generalization, can anchor themselves or associate themselves.
More caveats.
Well, I know I don't want to offend anyone, but it's true. It's like we can associate ourselves to our net worth. It's our success. We've achieved this. And we then don't like losing that identity of being a liquid millionaire or whatever the brand name we put on it. I tend to find I have the most success with clients when I catch them just before retirement. So they've got a guaranteed level of income coming in, and I get them to enjoy life. They spend it. So they've got the
whilst they're earning it.
Yeah, because you're more likely to spend more generously when you've got this guaranteed level of income coming in.
Yeah,
so you're on
this salary or this income
coming in the account. Yeah, I'm going to go and do that holiday. I'm going to go and enjoy that. I'm going to do that. It's coming in. And then I try and coach them into evidence in that their portfolio can sustain that level of income and that they can carry it on. Whereas if they've always been fairly cautious and they've been retired for a few years, and then I'm trying to it's like pushing them uphill. It's harder work.
Yes.
And we just go at their pace. We just graduate. Hey, I don't feel I'm a failure if I don't get my clients to spend money in the first year or two. But what I want to do is just bring them more happiness. What brings that's what my underlying mantra is. Make sure they remain financially organized and secure, and trying to make sure they do more happiness. But
it's sort of counterintuitive to an extent if your model as an advisor is based on percentage assets under management. You think, well, okay, I won't tell them to spend their money, and that means we're managing more. That means we earn more. And I don't believe in that. I'm saying it because, like yourself, you're there intentionally trying to get the client to spend their money. It's not as if any of them really, if they're sensible, say, okay, thanks for that. Can you double my income this year? Can I just draw £300,000 out or 30% of my portfolio to buy a yacht or something? It tends to be tweaks, doesn't it? And of course, it feels good and you get a better service, a better relationship with your client when you've helped them understand that their money's not going to run out and that they're going to have sufficient monies, and B, that they can do these things and that you're giving them permission to spend their money and it's a great feeling. But the other thing, before you jump in, I wanted to mention is clients get pegged to a certain level of asset level. So if they happen to be close to 1 million or close to 2 million and it dips below that because of markets, they sometimes think, well, it needs to get back up beyond that because I'm worth 2 million. And if it goes to 1.85, I'm just not that person anymore. And I'm thinking that's irrelevant. You've got to get past that and just, ignore that number.
So, trying to this is a coaching scenario with the client, saying to them about what brings you more happiness. We try and encourage them to sort of try before they buy. So you mentioned a second property earlier, you mentioned a yacht. I'd be completely like, okay, where do you want to go and get? I actually said to a client this week, they wanted to buy a second property in France. That's great. Go and do an Airbnb for a prolonged period of time. Go and live out there, see if you enjoy it. Go and try it before you buy it, because you might find you get it. And through experience, we've learned that actually I've got this second property and I'm now a bit of a maintenance man. I go out there and bring it up to speed. I spend a week or so doing it, doing all chores when I'm out there, that sort of stuff. And it's not such a holiday. I bumped into Peter Hargreaves once in a hotel. We was having a meal in Portugal, the one I've just come back from. It wasn't the same visit as a previous visit. And I was chatting to him and I said, but Peter, I don't want to be rude, but why are you here? Surely you've got property out here. He said, Warren, why would I buy a property in Portugal when I can stay in a hotel like this? I can eat in restaurants like this. People bring me drinks. They look after me, change my room, everything else. And I just get up and go when I finished. And I'm like, do you know what? He's got it. He's got it right.
Must have been a nice hotel.
It's a nice hotel. It's a nice hotel. But it's the same as the yacht. It's the same as, hey, come on, live life by design, not default. We've got to live. We can't preach to clients. We've got to be congruent.
Yeah.
But it's the same as yacht.
Listen, let's talk about that, because I've been brought down a peg by a couple of clients recently, not mention any names, obviously, but the comments, and I took it with a pinch of salt, but this idea that if you're a successful advisor and you ask the clients to come to your office and they sort of think, okay, that's a big house, or you're building this property, are you, at the back, or you're doing this, or you're going on these nice holidays. It's a fine line between trying to explain, if you've got a good relationship with your clients, what you're doing yourself to give them examples versus what other clients are doing, third person examples, which is much better social proof for that client to make a decision.
100%.
And I think that I'm very proud to be a successful financial advisor. And you've got to be careful, as I say, it's not you don't want to say to the client, I think you should do this or you should do this or whatever. It's
No.
getting them to come up with their ideas and helping them understand and helping them make a good decision with their money.
Yeah.
But as I say, it's I got told once that it's important. I think this was a Nick Murray thing where you can't just suggest to the client how to invest their money and not drop in there the way that you're doing it yourself. So I do tell clients, look, I invest the same way I'm telling you to, or recommending that you do.
Yeah.
I've not got some secret portfolio that I do it in a different way. I do it exactly the same.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, completely agree. It's, do you know, I don't share anything like that personally with my clients unless they ask me. If they ask me, I'm very, very open. I don't hide it, but I don't tell them the cars I drive or the places I go on holiday and stuff like that. Unless they say, "Oh, wait, what do you do?"
Unless they ask.
Absolutely, because I'm not embarrassed
And it's got to be a level playing field, hasn't it? The meeting is largely, mostly got to be about them. Of course it does. It's their money. It's their life. You're helping them. But as you say, as you get clients you've known for 10 years plus, when you're having more and more meetings, it's a two-way thing. They're just another person. You're having a discussion. And as I say, I get back to that point about you're helping them make a good decision. So what you said there, have you thought about going to go and try an Airbnb or rent a place before you buy? And I've done the same thing with clients that are thinking about a place down in Cornwall. Don't just go find a place that you love and buy it because you can. Go down and just stay down there for 2 or 3 weeks or 2 months first. And see if you really like it. Do you want to be that? Do you want to have that life, or do you want ultimate flexibility?
And do you know, almost to like wrap, I don't know if it's going to wrap it up, but to wraps up that sort of section for me is on the case of, we're saying draw more money, enjoy it, spend it, spend it, spend it. But, just sometimes money can be like chocolate cake. You have enough and you enjoy it. You have too much and you just feel a bit sick. And sometimes too much money isn't the answer. So just because the client can draw more money from their portfolio doesn't mean they have to. In my mind, it's like, what brings you more happiness? Do more of that and forget everything else.
That's a great point, and I commend you on that because it's come up in conversation a lot with clients that I've worked with and with my wife, with me, saying buying stuff we don't need. Let's get rid of stuff. Let's buy experiences rather than material goods. And it does translate to me suggesting to clients of mine, yeah, I am. I'm totally a spender and she's a saver, and that's good. Thank God she's my line in the sand. But just with the clients I saw in Oxford just very recently, just yesterday, in fact, we were having this same discussion. They've got a set level of income for their lifestyle, and here's me trying to encourage them necessarily, but tell them that it's a possibility that is there anything else you want to do? Is there any place you want to go? Is there any requirement? They've got 2 older kids, 80, or what are they, 20 and 22. Would you like to give them a deposit on a house? What impact is that for a first house? What impact is that going to have on your portfolio? It's you're right. It's sometimes having to the more stuff you've got, the more stuff goes wrong. The more maintenance it needs, the more headaches it brings sometimes. So there's definitely something to be said for less is more. I don't know whether that's sensible to say in finance.
No, I think so. Yeah, no, I think so. And this is the science of the art, isn't it? It's just like, coaching the client to, do more of the things that they are enjoying. Hey, should we wrap up for
It's
today?
less requirements, isn't it? Less wants, isn't it? It's having less wants. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Should we move to the Q&A?
Do you have any Q&A for me?
I have definitely got a couple. Let me have a look on here. Okay, ones that I actually quite like. There's a quote here from Patrick Foley. Retirement is a blank sheet of paper. It's a chance to redesign your life into something new and different.
Nice. Like that. I do.
I've got one more because I'll hand over to you. This is from Chris Brogan. He said, "The goal isn't more money. The goal is living life on your terms."
Do you know what? I think that's definitely.
Although if you've got a load of money, it does help.
It's and I guess a quote from me then on the accumulation side rather than the decumulation side. It's not your salary that makes you rich; it's your spending habits. That's Charles Jaffe. But I think
like that.
Yeah, I think it's true. It's just
but you're in control. If you're in control of your money, and it doesn't sort of dictate everything for you. It doesn't determine who you are. It doesn't own you, and you're not coveting money. It's definitely a bad thing to do that, to sort of as they say, compare yourself to your neighbor. We've heard the classic Teddy Roosevelt quote, comparison is the thief of joy. If you've just got enough and it's enough for you to live the lifestyle you want and you don't compare to others, happy days. You might end up retiring and you're up 2,000-3,000 a month and it's enough to cover your lifestyle. For others, they need more. They're just used to it. And if they can afford it, good on them.
Yeah, no. Okay, you okay if I wrap up?
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to the Finance Geeks. That's it for today's session, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend, or rather, great week, and enjoy the sun. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to the Finance Geeks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. Drop your comments and questions on YouTube, and be sure to follow us on social media. Join us next time for more insights to boost your financial planning game.